Part 45.02, Surah Al-Jathiyah, the kneeling, the anatomy of arrogance, and the woe of the sinful liar. As-salamu Alaykum. Welcome back to Sufi Essence with Hammad Syed. In our opening session of Surah Al-Jathiyah, we witnessed the cosmic laboratory, the heavens, the earth, and the biological microcosm of our own creation. We saw how the rhythms of grace, from the winds to the rain, serve as signs for those who believe, those who have certainty, and those who use their intellect. Today, we move into a darker, more cautionary movement, verses 6 through 10. In this passage, the narrative shifts from the logic of nature to the psychology of denial. We will analyze the Wayl, pronounced upon this sinful liar, the nature of the hidden ear that hears but refuses to listen, and the terrifying consequence of taking the divine signs as a jest. Welcome back to the Surah Al-Jathiyah Masterclass. In this session, we will examine the ultimacy of the Quranic discourse, analyzing why no hadith or speech is valid after the verses of Allah. We will explore the pathology of the Affāk, reflecting on the spiritual sickness of the sinful liar who hears the truth but persists in pride. We will deconstruct the irony of the mockery, analyzing how the arrogant treat the manifest book as a plaything. Finally, we will reflect on the inevitability of Jahannam, exploring the Sufi essence of why worldly wealth and false protectors fail when the great seizure arrives. This is a journey from arrogant defiance to inevitable submission. Verse 6, the final speech, As-salamu Alaykum. Surah Al-Jathiyah, the kneeling, chapter 45, verse 6. These are the verses of Allah which we recite to you with truth. Then in what speech after Allah and His signs will they believe? Tilka ayatullahi natlaha alayka bil haq, fabi hadithim bi'adalahi wa yadihi yuminin. These are the signs/verses of Allah which we recite to you with truth. So in what speech/discourse after Allah and His signs will they believe? This verse establishes the criterion of truth. In this Sufi essence, after witnessing the heavens, the earth, and the tanzil, there is no higher evidence. If the alternation of night and day and the divine speech do not move the heart, then no other hadith, discourse/speech, will suffice. Allah is asking, what more can be said? The Quran is the ultimate argument. To reject it is to reject the very logic of reality. It is the final call before the day of kneeling. Verse 7, the proclamation of woe. As-salamu Alaykum. Surah Al-Jathiyah, the kneeling, chapter 45, verse 7. Woe to every sinful liar. Wayl Affāk. Woe to every persistent/sinful liar. This is a divine decree of ruin. The word Wayl, woe, is a terrifying expression of total loss. The Affāk is not just a liar. He is one who constantly inverts the truth, the master of spin. The atham is the one steeped in sinful action. In the Sufi essence, the Affāk is the person whose ego has become so powerful that it creates a false reality. They see the signs of Allah, but tell their soul a lie to avoid submission. For such a person, the smoke of the world never clears until it is too late. Verse 8, the arrogant ear. As-salamu Alaykum. Surah Al-Jathiyah, the kneeling, chapter 45, verse 8. Who hears the verses of Allah being recited to him, then persists in pride as if he had not heard them, so give him the tidings of a painful punishment. Yazmiyu ayatullahi tutla alayhi thumma yaziru mustakbarin ka'alam yazmaha, fabashru by adabin alam. He hears the verses of Allah recited to him, then persists in arrogance as if he had not heard them, so give him tidings of a painful torment. This is the mechanism of denial. The person hears, yazmiyu, with the physical ear, but persists, yuziru, in pride, mustakbarin. In this Sufi essence, this is the veiled heart. They hear the truth, but their arrogance acts as a soundproof wall. They pretend the warning does not exist. The irony here is the phrase bashru, give him tidings, a word usually used for good news, now used as a sharp irony for a painful punishment. Verse 9, the mockery of the sacred. As-salamu Alaykum. Surah Al-Jathiyah, the kneeling, chapter 45, verse 9. And when he knows anything of our signs, he takes them as a jest, for such is a humiliating punishment. Wa'ida alima min ayatina shaynitakatahaha huzawa, ulaika layam adhabamyin. And when he knows anything of our signs, he takes them as a mockery. For those is a humiliating/disgraceful torment. Here we see the active rebellion. The Affāk does not just ignore the signs, he mocks them, huzawa. In this Sufi essence, mockery is the ultimate defense mechanism of the ego. When the ego feels threatened by the truth, it tries to belittle the truth. Because they tried to humiliate the verses of Allah, their punishment is described as mu'in, humiliating. The pride they wore in the world is replaced by eternal disgrace. Verse 10. The failure of the false protectors. Kanzalaman, Quran. Surah Al-Jathiyah, the kneeling, chapter 45, verse 10. Behind them is hell, and what they earn shall not benefit them at all, nor those whom they took as protectors besides Allah, and for them is a great punishment. Min warahim Jahannam. Wala yuni anam ma kasabu shayan wala maktakata min danilahai Awliya. Walayam adhaban adam. Beyond them is hell, and what they earn shall not avail them at all, nor those whom they took as protectors Awliya, besides Allah, and for them is a great torment. The destination is finalized. Jahannam is behind them, meaning it is lurking or inevitable. In this Sufi essence, the earnings, makasabu, the wealth, the status, the cornfields, cannot avail unium. Even their Awliya, protectors/leaders, whom they followed in arrogance, are powerless. Everything they relied on in this short respite dissolves. The great success of the believers is contrasted here by the great punishment, adhaban adam, of the mockers, extending the philosophical excavation, the speech of truth, and the silence of the heart. In this second movement of Surah Al-Jathiyah, we delve into the philosophy of the Final Discourse. Verse 6 asks a question that resonates through all of existence. In what speech after Allah and His signs will they believe? This is the theology of sufficiency. In Sufi thought, the verses of Allah, ayatullah, are the highest form of communication. They are recited with truth, bilhaq. If a soul is not pierced by the sublime logic of the heavens and the rhythms of grace, then it has decoupled from reality itself. The word hadith here refers to any human discourse or new argument. Allah is declaring that the evidence is complete. There is no missing link in the proof of the Creator. There is only a missing receptivity in the heart of the denier. The anatomy of the Affāk in verse 7 is a terrifying study in spiritual decay. The Affāk is the fabricator, the one who takes the clarity of Allah's signs and inverts them into fables of the ancients. When this is combined with being atham, sinful/wicked, we see a synergy of evil. In the Sufi essence, sin, itham, darkens the heart, and the lie, ifk, provides the intellectual cover for that darkness. It is a feedback loop of delusion. The woe, Wayl, is not just a future punishment. It is the current state of a soul that is drowning in its own falsehood. They are kneeling to their own ego long before they are forced to kneel to their Lord. Visual theme, hidden power/subtle force. Slow tectonic stone plates shifting beneath a layer of thick teal mist. A single, steady amber flame flickering in a vast, quiet darkness, representing the truth standing firm against the lies of the Affāk. Verse 8 provides a psychological x-ray of arrogance. The mustakbar, the arrogant one, hears but persists, yuzuru. This persistence is the rigidity of the ego. In Sufi thought, the ego, nafs, is like stone. It refuses to absorb the water of revelation. The phrase, as if he had not heard them, is the ultimate pretense. They treat the voice of the Creator as background noise. This is the spiritual deafness mentioned throughout the Quran. Because they persisted in their hardness, their reward is adhab alam, painful torment. The pain is the shattering of the ego that refused to bend. The desecration of the sacred in verse 9 is the weaponization of mockery. The scoffer treats the signs as a jest, huzawa. In this Sufi perspective, mockery is the defense of the cowardly soul. They cannot argue against the mighty and wise, so they laugh at him. But Allah labels this ignorance as a path to a humiliating punishment, mu'in. There is a divine reciprocity here. They tried to make light of the supreme truth, so Allah makes light of their dignity. The grandeur they claimed for themselves in the world becomes the dust of their disgrace in the hereafter. Verse 10 presents the bankruptcy of materialism. The phrase, "what they earn shall not benefit them," is the funeral of ambition. The Affāk spent his short respite accumulating earnings, kasabu, money, influence, and Awliya, false protectors. But when hell, Jahannam, is behind them, these things become weightless. In this Sufi essence, we take nothing into the secure station except our taqwa. The scoffers take their sins, but their assets stay behind. The great punishment, Adhab and Adam, is the final weight of a life lived for the self instead of for the mighty and wise. Reflect on the word itakadahaha, he took/adopted. This implies a choice. The mocker chooses to take the signs as a jest. It is not a mistake, it is an adoption of a stance. In Sufi thought, our life is the process of adopting a relationship with the truth. If we adopt the signs as guidance, we find success. If we adopt them as mockery, we find woe. The day of kneeling is the moment when the adopted stance becomes our fixed reality. The arrogant ear of verse 8 is finally opened, but only to hear the roar of the fire. The tidings of punishment, Basharu, serve as a divine sarcasm against human pride. In the world, the Affāk wants to hear good news about his wealth and his cornfields. Allah tells the Prophet to give him tidings, but the tidings are of torment. This is the shattering of false expectations. The scoffer thought he was noble, Kareem. Allah reveals he is disgraced, Mu'in. The play is over, and the great seizure has begun. The false protectors, Awliya, mentioned in verse 10 represent the hierarchy of arrogance. Often, the sinful liar follows leaders or ideas that promise security outside of Allah's law. They kneel to power, to wealth, or to philosophies of doubt. But on the day of decision, these Awliya are as helpless as their followers. The unity of the punishment mirrors the unity of the disobedience. In this Sufi essence, the only wali, protector, is Allah. To take any other is to build a house of smoke. The verses recited with truth, Bilhaq, in verse 6 contrast with the ifk, lies, of the Affāk. Haq is solid, permanent, and real. Ifk is flimsy, temporary, and invented. The surah is teaching us the weight of reality. When the solid truth of Allah collides with the flimsy lies of the ego, the lies are crushed. The painful punishment is the sensation of being crushed by the truth. The sinful liar tried to invert the world, but the day of Jathiyah right-sides everything. Furthermore, the persistence, Yuzru, in pride tells us about the addiction to arrogance. It is not a one-time event. It is a continuous state. The scoffer hears the recitation again and again, but persists again and again. In Sufi thought, this is the hardening of the heart, Kaswat al-Kalb. Each time a sign is rejected, a new layer of rust is added to the heart. Eventually, the heart becomes impenetrable. The woe is the sealing of the heart against the light of the Tanzil. The humiliating punishment, Adabamuin, is specifically tailored for those who sought honor in disobedience. In the world, the Affāk wants to be seen as intellectual, mighty, and indifferent. He mocks the believers as fables, but in the hereafter, his pride is his downfall. He is kneeling in disgrace. The gravity of the Jathiyah is the weight of his own arrogance pulling him down. The silk and brocade of the righteous from Surah Ad-Dukhan are the positive symmetry to this negative symmetry. Finally, Surah Al-Jathiyah is a warning to the listener. Verse 8 says, he hears the verses of Allah being recited to him. This is a direct address to us. As we hear these verses in this master class, we must ask, are we listening with the ear of the heart or the ear of the ego? Are we persisting in pride regarding our own opinions, or are we kneeling in submission to the mighty and wise? The woe is for the one who hears and ignores. The success is for the one who hears and obeys. The signs are recited with truth. Let us not take them as a jest. As we move forward, Let us beware of the ifk, lie, that our earnings or our false protectors can save us. Let us look at the steady flame of the truth and realize that everything else is smoke. The day of kneeling is coming, but the kneeling of love today saves us from the kneeling of terror tomorrow. All praise is due to Allah, Lord of the worlds. We have explored the woe of the sinful liar. In our next session, we will see the difference between the righteous and the wicked, how Allah does not treat them as equals, and the judgment that awaits each. Hadith. The Messenger of Allah, peace be upon him, said, "He who has in his heart the weight of a mustard seed of pride shall not enter paradise." Sahih Muslim. This hadith is the perfect commentary on verse 8. It explains why the mustakbir, arrogant one, is promised a painful punishment. Even the smallest amount of pride acts as a barrier to the grace of Allah. It underscores that the great success is only for the humble heart that kneels before the signs. Dua, O Allah, the mighty and the wise, we seek refuge in you from the woe of the sinful liar. O Al-Haq, let our hearts be receptive to your verses and protect us from the arrogance of those who hear but do not listen. O Al-Wali, be our only protector, and do not leave us to the false protectors of our own desires. Save us from persisting in pride, and from taking your manifest signs as a jest. O Al-Mu'izz, grant us honor through submission and save us from the humiliating punishment of the mockers. Let our earnings in this world be good deeds that avail us on the day of decision. Clear the smoke of ifk from our minds and fill us with the light of certainty. All praise is due to Allah, Lord of the worlds. Ameen.